Welcome to Notable Approvals. I'm attorney Amanda Shaffer. Before we get a quick reminder to make sure you like us and follow us on Facebook and YouTube and Instagram and Twitter and LinkedIn, which I was hoping we'd be going live to LinkedIn today, but apparently it didn't work again. I gotta work out those kinks. So make sure you like us and follow us so that you do not miss another notable approval or any of our other lives. Today's case is about a client who is a native and citizen of the Ivory Coast. He entered the U.S. in 2010 on an F1 student visa and married his U.S. citizen wife in 2015. In 2016, they concurrently filed the I-130 marriage petition and the green card application. They did so without the assistance of an attorney. In 2017, they went to one interview, their first adjustment of status interview, and they were then called back for a Stokes interview. That is the interview where you and your spouse are separated, asked the same questions separate, and then you're brought back together and the officer asks you to explain any answers that differed from one another. So those are the more stressful interviews. So they hired us when they got their Stokes interview notice, and I attended the Stokes interview with them, but unfortunately, the petition was denied. There was a lot of questions that they got wrong, and they did not really have much joint financial evidence or joint documents in general. So as is always the case with the client, when we get this I-130 denial, the question is, do we refile or do we try to appeal the decision? The way we determine it is in the decision, they actually will list every discrepancy that there is between the answers. So it'll say, I asked, where were you living when you said New York, she said New Jersey, why did you give me different answers? And then you're given a chance called the rebuttal. And if they don't, they'll write down your answer. And if they don't like it, they'll say that it did not overcome the discrepancy. So there, I've won these appeals on as many as 10, 11 discrepancies. It's not the number that matters. It's what is the discrepancy itself. If the officer's right that the fact that you gave two different answers, sometimes you give two different answers because for whatever reason, maybe sometimes you're actually asked the question differently. And I've had to, when I've sat in on interviews, I've been able to say that. But other times, what's being asked, one of you does, and that's why you have a chance to kind of explain yourself. So in this situation, while we were going through them, we couldn't really overcome them. There were things like they asked how many floors in your building, and like the husband said 5 floors and the wife said 6. Maybe people can make mistakes on how many floors are in their building, but if you live there, the idea is you should know. The same thing was when they moved in together. I remember that was another one. One of them was very clear that right before we got married, moved in together, and the other one was like, I think it was after the marriage. So mistakes like that, when you can't explain it away, that's when we sit back and not just the mistakes itself with the questions, but then also the documentary evidence. All they had really was a joint cell phone bill and 2 affidavits from friends. And that's not really that much evidence. So when we look at the evidence combined with what the discrepancies are, we said to them, look, we can try to appeal it. We don't like to do appeals when we're not confident. We're not confident here. You didn't have an attorney. You didn't know what evidence to submit. We think that we can get it approved if we refile and start from scratch. Now, it's not like the first filing disappears and it's never talked about again. USCIS definitely will compare this filing to that filing and can ask you questions about it. But you're starting over. Now you have an attorney. We're going to give you an evidence list. We're going to help you get the evidence. You're going to be better prepared this time for the interviews. and it should ideally go a lot better. So our client was, and I also will say, appeals cost money, and they also take time. So it's not like you're saving a lot of time by doing an appeal. It could actually take even longer to get a decision on the appeal sometimes. And it costs, the filing fee alone is like $930. And that's if you don't use a lawyer. And if you're going to appeal, I highly recommend you use a lawyer. Don't bother. So at the end of the day, you might spend a few $1,000s, and then it gets denied, and point to start over anyways. So you're not really doing yourself any favors unless you have a strong case for an appeal. And that's why we don't file that many appeals, because we're reluctant if we don't feel strongly about it. If we do 100%, that's what we're going to go for. And we have a very incredibly high success rate. I don't think we've ever got one denied, because we tell our clients very clearly, don't do this because you're just going to be wasting time, wasting money. Let's start over. So that's what we did here. So 6 months later, our clients, they were on top of it. He wanted to get his green card. We refiled it. This time we put in a lot more evidence of their joint marriage. We had joint bank account that they were using a lot. We had more cell phone bills. We had proof of their shared address. We had Con Ed bills. We had more affidavits from family and friends. We had photos. Photos, I always say, least important type of evidence, but you should have them. It is weird if you don't have them, especially of your wedding, even if it's at City Hall. You should want to remember that day. So they got a first round AOS, or adjustment of status interview. Again, I went with them. It didn't surprise me that they had to be called back again for a second Stokes interview. And that was mainly, it wasn't that the interview went so bad, it was that the first time around, because they had the Stokes and failed the Stokes, there's much more scrutiny on the marriage. So even though they had more evidence, they did much, their USCIS is looking at it in a different light than they did the first time around. So it does make it a little harder, but now they were better prepared. So we went to the second Stokes interview in May of 2019. And luckily, we didn't have to wait that much longer. A couple months later, the I-130 was approved, and I think less than a month after that, the I-485, or the green card application, was approved. And because my client had to refile, by the time they went to the green card interview, they were married more than 2 years, so he got a 10-year green card. And not this year, I think it's less than 2 years, he's going to be eligible to apply for naturalization, because as far as I'm aware, they are still happily married and living together. So, this case is another one of these cases that teaches us a very valuable lesson that, it's tempting to want to try to do these. And all the power to you if you're able to, but these filings are very complicated, and you need to make sure you have everything that is required and as much evidence as possible. Otherwise, they threw out $1,760 the first time around. They didn't pay a lawyer, but they threw out that money, and they threw out the money on the Stokes interview paying the lawyer, and then they had to refile it. So and then they wasted, not they wasted time, but it got delayed because of that. So it really shows you that if you do it right from the very beginning, he would have gotten a green card when he had the first interview in 2017. He would be a U.S. citizen, or at least applying for citizenship already. But at the same time, he does get the 10-year green card, which is nice. Bottom line is, the second time around, although it got approved, it was definitely harder than it would have been if that was the first time, because now they're coming out from the place of USCIS to saying, I'm not really sure now, you got to prove it even more to me. There's a higher burden now, because they didn't find fraud the first time, they just denied it. So that was a good thing. That's a whole nother thing we'll get into another day, if fraud is found out at the Stokes interview, and then you refile, if you need an admissibility waiver or not, but that's for another time and place. Bottom line, hopefully you can see, there we go. Bottom line is that you should, whenever you're doing a filing with immigration, you should aim to do it right the first time and get everything necessary the first time. You don't want requests for evidence. You don't want to have to refile. You don't want to have anything in doubt. And that's what I'm here for. And my phone number, email address, been scrolling across the bottom of the screen. Happy to help you, even if it's just for your Stokes interview or the whole filing in general. Give us a call. We're here for you. That's all today for notable approvals. I'm not sure when I will be doing my next one. I'll be going on medical leave for a little bit, hopefully no longer than a week. Hopefully I'll be back in 2 weeks. Attorney Aaron Shapiro will hopefully make an appearance on one of our lives while I'm out, if he can. Very busy man. But if I don't see everybody, if you do have questions in the meantime while I'm out, Aaron is in the office. This email address at the bottom of the screen, Aaron also gets, and that's also his phone number. So if you need us, you do not have to wait for me to come back. We're here for you, and we will definitely be back with some great cases. I just had a fantastic marriage and green card interview that I sat in on that was approved, that I can't wait to talk about when I return. One of the fastest interviews I've ever had. So look forward to that. I can't wait to be back in a few weeks. And make sure that you, of course, like us and follow us on Facebook and YouTube and Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn, so that you always know when we're going live and you don't miss it. Thank you all for watching, and have a great day.